I'm Catherine. Welcome to my making adventure. This is a video podcast where I try to share all of my different crafty things that I've been doing lately. This will be kind of a 2-week update. Today is Thursday, January 23rd, 2025. And I've been filming on Saturdays, but we're not available this Saturday. So I'm filming a little ahead of time. So it's a little bit less than 2 weeks of my knitting update. I live in the rural Midwest with my husband and our 3 daughters. The youngest one is supposed to be napping. So if you hear the residual baby monitor noise, I apologize, but I do need to be listening to her. My husband has our older 2 daughters at the library. They were so excited to go play there. You can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as My Making Adventure. So yeah, today I am wearing the Felix cardigan, which is a pattern by Christoffers. I made this summer, and I love wearing it. I wear it all the time, but it has pilled a lot, and I'm unable to keep up with the maintenance that is required by that. I will make sure to link all of my project pages down below, as well as timestamps if you want to jump around and look for a specific project. The yarn in this is Hobie Tweed Delight in, I think, the color Chai Latte. And after I knit this cardigan, I had a lot left over because I had originally crocheted it into a sweater, ripped that out, and then knit this. And I had, I think, 350 grams left over. So I decided to knit my daughter a zipper sweater out of it. And I have finished that. I'm really excited to share that with you as my first finished object today. So I, earlier this fall winter, knit the zipper sweater Light Men, a pattern by PetiteKnit, and I used that pattern as well as the Metamorphic pattern by Lisa K. Ross, which has all sizes and the right weight of yarn. The PetiteKnit pattern was a DK weight, the Metamorphic was a worsted weight, and Metamorphic had all size ranges from baby to adult. And so I kind of used the numbers from the Metamorphic and the style from the PetiteKnit pattern and hacked my own version of it for my toddler. I don't have it right now because she would not take it off for me to show you. So I will include some photographs up here of it. And I will try to give you the details. So first of all, I started on Christmas Day and I finished it yesterday, January 22nd. And that includes putting in the zipper, weaving in all the ends, and I added a little front pocket for her. So all of that I did in just under a month. And my final gauge after it's been blocked is 18.5 stitches per 4 inches. That's using, this yarn is kind of worsted / Aran on a US 6. So on this cardigan, the yarn is knit on a US 10 needle, and on the zipper sweater, I use a US 6 or a 4mm needle to get a much tighter gauge. After I finished it all the way, I weighed it. This is including the zipper, so I don't know how much the zipper weighs versus the yarn, but the whole sweater weighs 220 grams. I was silly and didn't weigh it before I put the zipper in, and I didn't have accurate weight of my yarn because it had been from a frogged sweater, and I didn't weigh it as I was knitting it. The finished measurements, the bust circumference is 26.5 inches. The length, so since the collar kind of stands up around the neck, I measured from just under the collar all the way through the bottom ribbing, and that is 15.2 inches. That ended up being longer than what I intended. but I feel like it's in line with the last sweater I knit her, and that one doesn't feel too long, but this one feels too long. The first time she put it on, she was like, "Ah, you made it too big," and she was really upset. But I said, I did that on purpose so it would be warm, and now she likes it. The sleeve length, so like from the underarm to the edge of the cuff of her sleeve is 7.5 inches, and the armhole depth is like 5.25 inches. I don't really know how to best measure any of that. I get stuck over like where it should be perpendicular versus where it should be at an angle. So yeah, about 5.5 inches. We'll go with that. The arms fit her perfectly. The zipper installation is even better than my first zipper sweater, and I'm really proud of that. I worked hard. I learned a lot doing it the one time, so I was able to, you know, adjust and do better this last time, and I think it turned out really well. I passed the toddler test of like, will the zipper come off? And my 5-year-old, because this was knit for my 3-year-old, and my 5-year-old's like, can I get the zipper off, or is it gonna stay on? She might have been a little sad that it wasn't for her. Yeah, so she's been happy to wear that in her car seat as we're going out in the cold weather, and she's been pretty happy to have that available to her. And I'm glad that she has it too, because it is nice to know that she has something warm to wear outside in the cold weather that's safe for her to also wear in her car seat, and to just kind of have, this is what we're doing and we're going, and not be like, how about this, how about that, how about this other thing, should we do 2 sweatshirts because it's cold today? Just kind of have like a basic routine that you can kind of flow into every time that you need to go out. I appreciate things like that with 3 young children. I think that's all I have to add on that sweater. If you have any questions, leave them down below. I'd be happy to answer them. But I do think that those are my details on that project. I did also finish the dishcloth that I have been working on, but we've already used it, so I'm not going to show you my dirty dishcloth. Maybe if it's clean in the next video, I'll show it to you then. And I'm not working on it. I didn't immediately cast on another one, so I think I wanted the cord for a different project. So I am waiting to feel ready to cast on another dishcloth. I finished that on Sunday when I was supposed to be working on my stocking. And I also don't do project pages for my dishcloths, sorry. So now we can transition to works in progress, which I was feeling really, really good about finishing that zipper sweater. There were a lot of like stages of finishing. There was the like finished with the knitting. And then I was like, oh yeah, I need to do the facing for the zipper. I had thought some about not actually installing a zipper and finishing that edge differently, like maybe with like a crochet stitch around it. And my daughter was not going for that. So I ended up needing to put in a zipper. So I finished the knitting. Then I was like, oh yeah, I need to knit the facing and sew that down. And then it's like, okay, I'm done with that. Woo! Now I'm really done with the knitting. It's like, oh wait, I need to install the zipper. You know, so I got that installed. And I was like, yes, I'm done. And I was like, oh yeah, I was gonna do a pocket for her. So then that was the last thing that I did, which involved more knitting. So I really wasn't done with the knitting the first time I thought I was. But it was just like kind of a lot of steps where I was like almost done and almost done and almost done. So it was like officially done yesterday morning. All I had to do was sew the top of the pocket, attach the top of the pocket to the sweater. That felt like so good to be like finally done. So to do the little pocket, I was going to share a little bit about that. I picked up stitches and then I knit like back and forth in stockinette, doing the slipping 3 at the end with yarn in the front to make an I-cord border on each side going up. And I did some decreases. I don't know that they like turned out exactly how I wanted them to, or I'm not even sure that like I got the size of the pocket that I really was hoping for, but I think it's good enough. And then I bound off with an I-cord at the top and left like a really long tail on my bind off so that I could like sew the top down after I blocked it, because I'd actually already blocked the whole sweater before adding the pocket, so I knew I needed to reblock it so that the pocket would like block out to the right size so I could sew it down. I ended up doing like several extra rows on the pocket than I did on the sweater compared to where I sewed it down, but I think probably because of the I-cord and because it's knit flat and it's a smaller amount, it didn't really, it is kind of a stretch still for that pocket piece, and I intended it to have like a little extra room, and I'm not sure that it does. She can get her hands in it, she can put a toy or two in it, and she's thrilled with it. But it was interesting to me that I could add, I think I added 4 rows on the pocket compared to the sweater itself, and it still ended up being a little bit short, but that's okay. All right, it felt I was making a ton of progress on that, and I made quite a bit of progress, I believe, on my next whip. On my next project, which is still a work in progress. I hit a hiccup. I'm going to share it with you. So the next one is my second Felix cardigan. So same pattern as this one, but I'm doing some things differently. So pattern is by Christoffers. I am using some black yarn for this project. I started with some Fleischer's knitting wool worsted, or superior knitting worsted wool, 100% non-superwash wool in a worsted weight, and I knit the majority of the sweater with that. It's black, and which is really, really useful to me in my wardrobe, but a little trickier to knit in the dark with. And I chose to knit a size smaller than this because I felt like the yoke depth was really big here, bigger than I needed. And I chose to omit the lace and do regular make one raglan instead. And I think that's all going well. I had only 8 ounces of the Fleischer's wool, and I had 2 additional skeins that we hand dyed of like a DK weight non-superwash wool, and some fingering that we dyed. And I decided to hold those together when I ran out of the Fleischer's wool. And that was, I feel like that went really, really well. And I was able to finish the body of the sweater. So I've got ribbing here at the bottom of the body, and that is done. And I was able to do one whole sleeve. And so I was really pleased with that. And I finished this sleeve, and my ball of DK yarn that I was using had less than 2 ounces left. Like, it was just like a little scrap basically left at the end. I didn't actually weigh it, so I'm hesitant to say like 1 ounce, but it did not have very much left. And I love the way it's fitting me. I was so excited. I was like, I'm making great progress. I'm gonna get this one off my needles so fast too, along with, you know, the zipper sweater. So I was excited to finish, you know, my 2 things I had been working on for a while. And I grabbed my other ball of DK yarn and I cast on the second sleeve. And I knit on this for like this sleeve for like 2 days, like Sunday and Monday, along with other things that I was working on. I had a little bit of the Fleischer's wool left over to pick up the sleeve and get it started. And then I transitioned to the DK yarn, and I'm not sure if you're gonna be able to tell, but when I added the DK yarn in, it was very clear that it wasn't as black as the rest of the sweater. So this skein of yarn is like more gray-y, browny black, and I can tell a difference. And so I'm trying to decide how much it matters to me. because I could tear it out and we could try re-dyeing it. But I have to rip it back, like rewind the yarn into like a big hank, tie it up and re-dye it, then cake it up and try knitting with it again to see if that would have an impact. Or I could just deal with it. I didn't notice when I initially was knitting with it because the lighting wasn't just right. So like most of the time I'm probably not going to notice. But when the lighting is right and I do notice. So I have put this in timeout. I'm trying to decide what I want to do with it. I mean, I don't even know if a regular person would notice, but I am noticing. So that was really, really sad because I had been nervous to put in the first ball of DK yarn, but once that transition was so smooth, I was like, no problem. I will not worry about it. And then I put in the second ball and I was like, this is not the same. So that's where I'm at. And I really wouldn't even mind if I was just had the button bands left because I could do, you know, the button bands, and I don't think that it would, because the texture is different, that it would really notice, that it would really matter. I wonder if I could knit a whole sleeve in the amount of yarn that I use in the bottom ribbing. Well, now I'm gonna think about that. Rip out the bottom ribbing, use that yarn to knit the sleeve, and then use this yarn that I have to re-knit the bottom ribbing, and then to knit the button bands. I might think about that. I don't know. It's just making me sad because I was like on a roll and doing good, and I think I knit the first sleeve in like 2 or 3 days, and I was like, this is going so well, it's working out great, and now I like lost my steam on that project, but that's okay. I'm sure we'll come back to it. It is going on like a 3-month project, so and I was really ready to have it done, and I still might just be really ready to have it done enough that I don't mind the colors issues. We will see. The next whip I have is my stocking. I'm working this year on knitting stockings for each of my children. I am using inspiration from a pattern by Annah Burns, and my yarn is all Knit Picks Wool of the Andes. I'm using US 8 needles, and I've made very little progress. I mean, I'm not sure where it was last time I showed it on the podcast. I should place a marker so I can remember where I am now. But this is, I have, in this section, I will duplicate stitch my child's name. And I have a snowflake motif, a little break, and then I'm starting in on a tree motif. This is what I've declared my Sunday project. So on Sundays, I'm supposed to work on this. This Sunday, this weekend and this coming weekend, both this past weekend and this coming weekend, both were busier than I wanted. And I ended up needing Sunday really as a really big rest day. Like, I mean, which knitting project you're doing does impact my rest. And this was not the kind of rest that I needed on Sunday. So I only knit like, I think 2 or 3 rounds on that, and before I was like, yeah, I can't keep doing this. I'm gonna work on a different project. And I think I then finished the dishcloth, and I probably did something on the zipper sweater and on the Felix cardigan, and that all was feeling really good. And I prepped to cast on this project, which I cast on Monday. So this is my 3rd whip that I have going right now. And this is from my Make 9. I'm really excited about this project too. So last year in the Make 9 Make Along hosted by Amy of Noble Character Crafts, I won a mini skein set of this Wonderland Yarns Mad Hatter, and it had 5 ounces. It had 5 ounces of superwash merino in a sport weight, 5 different colors. And I don't know the names of the colors, but I will show them to you. My baby is making noises. So this is light gray, this yellowy tan, this blue, this is like a rose-ish color, and this is a dark gray, maybe with some hints of green or brown. I'm not like really good at color analysis. Anyway, I was trying to figure out a project to use that yarn with, and I decided to cast on the hot water cover, and I found a free pattern by Christina Birk Sorensen. It appears as though this pattern was not originally written in English, because the name of the pattern is, I think, not English. And so it will be up here, but I don't think I should try to pronounce it. That original pattern is for sport weight yarn, and so I appreciated the stitch count and the needle to use and all of that, instead of just like trying to freehand it all. It also had a color work chart, and I was originally planning to do the color work. And it was very simple, easy color work. But when I felt a certain way about my stocking, I decided that I wasn't really up for color work. So I just decided to stripe the different yarns in to make my hot water bottle cover. And this yarn is so good. So as I was saying, this yarn I got as a prize from participating in last year's Make 9 Make Along, and so I put it on my Make 9 board for this year as kind of a fun way to use up that yarn. And I'm about, I think, halfway. The yarn is just so beautiful. Like, it's soft, it's stretchy, it's squishy. I love it. I'm really, really enjoying working with the yarn. Yeah, I love it. I think it's coming out really well. And I put like my hot water bottle in it and it fits. So all that is a win-win. I'm just like counting my plain rounds before I get to the decreases at the top. And I'm knitting this on US 4 3.5 millimeter needles. And it's working out well for me. I don't know how it might grow. Oops. I don't actually have any yarn attached to it right now. It might grow after I wash it, but it's also not the sort of thing that you like need to regularly wash or anything like that, but it might stretch a little bit some way or another, but I think that it will still work and do its job. So yeah, there's my hot water bottle cover. And this has been good like nighttime knitting when I'm putting my girls to bed, or car knitting. It's pretty transportable because the stripes are so big that once I have a color in, I can knit for a while before worrying about anything. And it's all stockinette. Yeah, so I'm enjoying that as probably sort of my primary project, especially since the Felix cardigan, the black version, is in timeout. So that is what I have. Oh, and this bag is from Stephanie of Texas Peach Knits. Didn't she do a good job? I'm really also happy to be able to use that. One other little thing that I did was I earlier this fall had knit my 5-year-old some mittens, and after I made the baby her mittens, my 5-year-old wanted a cord attaching her mittens together so that they would just like hang in her coat and she wouldn't have to worry about them. And so I did that just this afternoon. I added a cord between her mittens and stuck them in her coat so that she could easily get it on. And I always hear people like complaining about knitting an I-cord being a little annoying. And I suppose it is, but I feel like even to get the length that I needed for that, that's probably one of the longest I-cords I've ever done. It really didn't bother me that much. And I'm using like a circular needle. So I'm like, knit 4 stitches, slide, knit 4 stitches, slide. And it wasn't bothering me. So I don't feel a need to have like a cord smith or any tool that makes knitting I-cords easier. Because I don't really feel like I have a big problem with that. That's exactly the kind of knitting I'm here for. The kind where you can look up from your work and end up with something useful at the end of it. I do plan to cast on a hat for my 5-year-old. I'm probably going to use the Pearl Soho classic ribbed hat. I think it calls for DK yarn, and I'm using Cascade 220. I'm gonna use the leftovers from their sweater to do it. And also it's the same yarn that I used for her mittens. So I made my family sweaters in this yarn earlier this year. I'm planning to use this to make her a hat. So I think the pattern calls for a US 3 needle, and there's no way I'm knitting this. So this is kind of like a worsted weight yarn, but also like a pretty light worsted. Some people can knit it as a DK weight. I think I'm going to use US 5 needles, and instead of knitting her the kid size of the hat, I will knit her the baby size of the hat, and then we'll see how that works. And I am going to stripe it, even though it's ribbed. So it's going to be the main color. It's a navy. And this is the main color for her mittens. I don't remember the other color names or numbers. I will try to get them included in a Ravelry project page when I get that made up. There's a teal and a pink. And so I'm just I have more of this navy, so I'm just going to use this as the main color and take turns striping in those other colors. And I mean, each other color might happen twice, maybe 3 times, but I think that she'll love it, and it will be fun, and it will match her mittens. And then we'll see how much of the yarn I have left. I was asking my 3-year-old, because I haven't made her hat or mittens yet this year, what she wanted. That I said, oh, and then we'll see what I have left, and we can pick colors to make yours. And she said, I want purple. Well, I don't really have any purple yarn right now because you guys always want purple, so the purple yarn is always used up. She said, I want purple. So we have one skein of a certain base, DK weight. It's a non-superwash like BFL, I think, that is undyed, and I think we're gonna try to dye that purple for her. I am sure that at her size, I can knit a hat and mittens out of 100 grams of yarn. So that's to come as well. I do really feel like this is sort of a little things spot in my knitting for me. Work on the stocking is sort of a little project, although it feels enormous at the moment. The hot water bottle covers are small. Hats and mittens for toddlers are small. So the Felix cardigan is kind of the biggest thing I have on, and I don't have any big part of it left to do, just the sleeve and the button band. So yeah, that's my knitting projects. I will talk a little bit about what I've been up to, and I hope you'll stick around for that. The first part of that, I would like to share my reading. So last time I said I was reading All the Light We Cannot See, and that my library kept only giving it to me on Libby for like 2 weeks. Well, I found it. at the real library in physical copy. And so now I have like 4 weeks to read it. I had, while I was waiting to go see if I could find it, picked up a new book on Libby, Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. And I was already reading it. So I didn't stop reading that to read this. So I haven't actually progressed this book at all. But I'm ready to, because I finished Where the Crawdads Sing and it was fabulous. I really loved it. Yeah. I really, really enjoyed it. One of those like that I was staying up late to read multiple nights, but trying not to stay up too late because I have young children who need me in the morning and sometimes during the night. We made a new recipe, which was like a French onion pot roast, except we made it with round steak because that's what we had easy access to in our freezer. And that was pretty good. There are maybe some things we'd try different next time, but I think we will make it again because it was a really easy and convenient way to eat a round steak and also like pretty nutritious. I have been working on my sourdough. I don't know if I shared, but I did kind of like structure a routine. So I have like Thursdays are my sourdough days, and that's been going really well. I'm getting like, last week, like a week ago, I made a loaf of bread and some rolls, and then I put dough for another loaf of bread in the fridge and pizza crust in the fridge. And that got us through the week. I actually still have like just a little bit of the second loaf of bread that we baked up, I think on Sunday, but I'm not 100% sure. And then today, actually starting last night, I made sourdough rolls, 2 loaves of bread in the fridge that we'll bake up later because we're having a potluck at church and we want to bring those. And then I still have to do the pizza crust later tonight because we'll use that tomorrow. We do pizza on Fridays. So yeah, and then maybe next week I'll like do all the same things, or maybe I'll be ready to try something new. But I am like a routine person, so I really like to get in my routine and know that what I'm doing is working before I try anything new. And so right now it's like, yes, we knew that the rolls would work. We had figured out that the bread was working. And so the pizza crust was like kind of the new thing, and that's been working really well. So now like I'm working on getting the schedule of doing it on Thursdays down, and I might be ready soon to try a new recipe. Although I'm not even quite sure what I would want to try at this point. We've done bagels and English muffins before, so I might lean towards something like that. But honestly, like what we're making is working for us. So I also don't feel a big stress to try something new. We've been so busy. I thought January would be kind of a calm year in terms of like our business, which is gardening based, but it ended up being like a lot. Like we were like doing all the planning, and I love planning, so I was ready for that. But in with having it as a business means that it's not just the planning aspect of it. We have to do the advertising and some of the setup, and we ordered our seeds and we got our seeds, and now we have to decide like what do we need to start first. Is our area in the basement ready to get starts going? My husband's gone to several different like meetups and networking and advertising type things in town, and I was like, wow, this is like all of a sudden a lot in 1 month. But it's all good stuff and we're all really excited about it, but it has ended up feeling a lot busier than I thought we would feel with that on top of our regular stuff. I was ready for the spring, like March and April, to be crazy, but not necessarily January. My daughter did have kind of a really big doctor appointment on Monday that took most of the day. And my other daughter got to like spend the night at a cousin's and have a ton of fun. And so yeah, that was also like a whole day of like the day before you're preparing and getting everything ready. And then the day you're traveling to the doctor, doing a long doctor's appointment, traveling home, kind of like unpacking everything and doing all that. So it was a pretty big deal. I'm glad that it's done, and I hope never have to do anything like that ever again. And thankfully, like, it wasn't anything that like requires a long recovery or anything. Like, we got home and she was good to go. So I'm grateful for that, but it just was a lot. And also we have something fun planned on Saturday with some friends. So yeah, that is all exciting stuff. So we've been pretty busy. We've had really cold weather too, which makes it harder to get out of the house with little ones. But it looks like we're gonna have a week where it's a bit warmer, like 30s and 40s for the highs. So I'm really excited about that. Yeah, maybe we'll get outside just a little bit more. Thank you for joining me today for my making adventure. Until next time, God bless.